Good evening, everyone. I'll just
All right. So shall we begin, Chairman sir? I think now we'll start. 6:36.
done.
Good evening. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Anurag, Dr. Vishwas is also there. Dr. Vishwas, can you hear us?
Yeah, very much. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Pretty
And
much.
everyone is able to see him, right? Anurag, can you welcome Dr. Vishwas, and we'll start with the immunity and exercise.
All right. So good evening, everyone. This is a formal welcome to each and every one, and I'm sure that all of you have done your day so great, and all are ready to learn something new. The tips to boost our immunity through the lens. We call it lens. It's lungs, eyes, neck, and shoulders. So thank you, Dr. Vishwas, for accepting our invite to guide us a little bit or to boost our immunity. So we learned today from Dr. Vishwas that how we can boost our immunity, and he will show us some of the exercises and give us a lot of tips in order to do so. And this session will be then followed by on the transfer pricing. We'll formally welcome, on the transfer pricing about Ashutosh Rastogi. We'll formally welcome once the session is over. So I'll not, without further ado, I would like to ask Dr. Vishwas to take it forward. Over to you, Doctor.
Okay. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. A very good evening to all the members of Institute of Chartered Accountant. It's been an immense pleasure to be here and share my experience on wellness and how to manage your immunity. As the topic today is manage your healthy account, I think you all accountants are so good in managing so many accounts. Today we'll be talking about health, because suddenly in last few months, life has changed. Life has changed not just professionally, personally also. And it has suddenly realized to the world that health has become the most important account to manage. And how we can manage that account, we'll discuss about it. The first thing that we talk about in managing account is immunity. The concept immunity, which is now being talked and discussed in almost every social media platform, every newspaper, every doctor talk about, is how to improve it. And you might have been listening about various food habits, various simple exercises you can do. But I'm going to talk about some ancient Ayurvedic as well as the yoga approach toward immunity boosting. I'll be talking about immunity with the concept of A2 and V2. A2 means ahar and asana, the exercises and the food. And V2 means, which I think everybody should note down when you have time, V2 means the vihar as well as the vichar. That is your discipline and your thought process. Because these four aspects are the real aspect by which you can really boost your ability. Let's come to the first topic about food. There are a lot of things people are confused that what they should eat, what they should not eat. And they try almost all the herbs in the world to get the best immunity. That works very well. But thing that works very important in the food is how we take the food. What should be the timing of the food? What food should be taken with different nature of the day, nature of the season? That's very, very important. As we all are now forced to sit in the house and work from the house, people's lifestyle has changed. They're not eating on time. They're not eating in a proper way. Everybody watch television or on social media and eating, which is the worst enemy when you talk about balancing and improving your immunity. So make sure, guys, whatever food you eat, you should have a proper discipline. Sometimes people in their anxiety and the depression, they eat fast. Or sometimes they chew too much slow. This has to be changed. You should always eat in a proper, balanced way and with a very important state of mind. Though food is a big topic, I'm not going much to it because there are many aspects I have to talk. Second aspect which is important is the vihar. Like you all are professional, and when you all used to go to office so regularly, you have a disciplined timing. You get up at a time, you go to a time, particular in the office, come back at the right time. But now things have changed. As the world is moving more to work from the home habit, which I think will be there for a long time, people discipline is not there. I personally advise everybody to should have a proper timetable. The time you get up, the time you take your food, everything should be in a proper scale. Like you make a timetable for the kids, make a timetable for yourself. It is very important, guys. If you don't have a proper timetable, you will never going to have a proper discipline and good immunity. Because immunity really emphasizes on how you keep your body clock. Very important, body clock. That's why discipline, that is the vihar is very important. We call our own discipline. Then comes the topic which is a concern for today, the vihar, emotions. Emotions, guys, plays the most important role. I think something happened. Can you hear me, everybody? I certainly can. Yeah. Emotions plays a very important role. Now with the panic in the market, worldwide, the market is not going the way we all thought. There's a lot of job insecurity. People have a lot of fear. So emotions playing a very important role. And I think in the coming time, the rate of depression, anxiety, and panic attack will go a massive rate. So guys, it is very important that we need to stabilize and control our emotions. For that, very important, one simple exercise. One exercise, because I believe even if you take the best food in the world, you do the best exercise, your emotions being positive is very important. For that one exercise which I'm telling you, which I want everybody to practice from today only, is being with you. You all might be thinking we are already too much with ourselves. No, this being with you means being with your thoughts, being with your own emotions. You have to spend at least few minutes in a day, precisely 15 to 20 minutes to start with, where only you, with no social media, no mobile, nothing. You can start with a piece of paper and a pen and write down your thoughts. Because remember, what is happening now is more going to be good if you are able to manage your emotions. Because if your emotion stability is good, your business will be 10 times good. So you have to take your emotions. Emotions are the building block for your immunity. So guys, practice this thing. As you will practice this in 15, 20 days, you will find you see yourself completely different person. Then comes to the point which we all always talk about is the asana, A2, the postures. As I was mentioning before, because you're all sitting too much on the chair, we are developing a lot of posture disorders. We are developing spine pain, back pain, and with the present scenario when doctors are not available, it is more important that we should keep ourselves healthy, especially with the people who have metabolic disorders like diabetes, like digestive disorders. For them, blood pressure, it's very important that they have to do some exercises sitting on the chair. So today I will be guiding you some small exercises that you can do very easily in your routine wherever you're sitting and working that can help you. That will be what Anurag was saying about land. We'll be talking about shoulder, eyes, lungs, and other things. Now in immunity, lungs. So let's start with the lung exercise. I want everybody to do a small test to check whether their lungs are healthy or not. This video I made before, I got a lot of response from it. Are your health lungs easily comfortable or not? Let's do a small exercise, which I want all the members to take participate. It's very simple exercise. What you need to do, you need to breathe in maximum, hold the air and try to count for a 10 to 15. You all will try to do with me. So inhale, 1, relax. I know you can go more. Very good. If you are able to do 10 to 15 or 20 count, don't worry. No virus is going to harm you. Because if your cellular level of your lungs get a good oxygen, your body is fantastic. That's what the problem in this virus is. Your lungs get shortage of air. You feel congested. That's why lungs plays a very important role. So one simple test, if you all are very good in it, fantastic. There's one more test. I think you all want to do something. Let's do another test. What you need to do is you need to pump the air in the lungs. If you're able to pump for more than 8 to 10 times without breathing out, wow. What you need to do is you sit or stand, whatever you're comfortable. You just pump the air. Why? Without breathing out. It's like try to do 7 to 10 times without breathing out. Very good. Don't worry if you don't reach 10. Don't feel that, oh, I can't do it. But if you practice, my dear, you can reach up to 40 to 50 in one go. Doing that much air in the lung, whether your weight is this size, small size, doesn't matter. Lungs doesn't depend on your weight. It purely depends how you use them. Understand, if your lung expenditure and contraction is good, you are very healthy. Now comes the point about, we have done a test over the lungs. We'll talk about lung exercise when we're doing the chair exercise. So let's do some chair exercise. Okay, I'll bring a chair here. Okay, I'll have Dr. Chanchal with me today to demonstrate. Please. Okay, now when you're sitting too much on the chair, I think everybody can see properly. This is the point where everybody has a concern, your shoulder. What happens when you're sitting and typing, your shoulder become more inside, your back get a good back curve. And that's the reason you feel pain, numbness, and pressure in the neck. What can you do for this? First and most important, always try to sit with shoulder broad. If your shoulder is broad, half of your problem is gone, my dear. So make sure your shoulder is broad while you're doing. Second thing, when you're doing, you should not use your mouse only with right hand. If you're a righty, you should keep changing the hand, though it's very difficult, but you should keep changing the hand. I tell you, I'll tell my experience. I got a tennis elbow 2-3 weeks back, and I play some games, and I was not able to play because my right hand is gone. I developed left hand so well that I don't think I can play with right so well now. It's all about practice. So you start practicing, change the habit of using the mouth from both the hand. It will be very useful. Now comes certain exercise we should take care. With your eye level, everybody, I think if you work on a laptop in your house, make sure the eye level and the screen is the same, maximum 10 degree. If it is too low, you will definitely go to have a cervical problem. Okay? Now, first exercise which you should do is lock your finger, everybody, and stretch your hand forward. Push it. Anish, do some exercise. Stretch your hand forward. Now everybody can see you guys. That's a problem of being online. Okay, stretch your arm. Very good. And try to look up. So you can put some lovely pictures on the roof. Hold for a while. 5, 4, 3, 2. Come back slowly. Yes, loose. Now turn the hand, pointing the finger up. Now this gives loose stretch to your forearms, your inner arms, and push your neck down now. Try to see your toes or your knee. Hold there for a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come back. Very good. Now stretch your arm to the side, open. Very good. Turn the neck to the right and try to see the little finger on the right. Then turn to the left. Very good. Come back. Loose the shoulders. Very good. Now circle the shoulders clockwise. Slowly. And then slowly anti-clockwise. Very good. Loose. Now stretch your hand again forward. Now this is a very good exercise which will stretch all the major joints. Is you make the hand to turn in maximum. As much you can, you turn the wrist inside. It's like this. Yes. So you can feel all the 3 joints stretch in this. Then you turn outside. You can do even this exercise by holding a small ball or a water bottle. Do it one more time. Inside, curve it in, and then curve out. Yes, relax. Lose your hand. Very good. Lock again, stretch forward. Now complete arm stretch. Lift your hand up maximum and let your hand go further back as much you can. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Lose your arm. Very good. So these are 4 simple exercises which can help your shoulders and neck. Now comes the point which is a concern is your eyes. Guys, eye exercise is even important for your kids who are now purely working in online schools. So you have to really take care of eyes. One simple exercise which you should do at the end of the day in the evening is take a piece of a cotton, put in a cold water, make it wet, soak the water and keep in your closed eyes. Or you cut some cucumbers and keep in your eyes. You will find in few minutes that cotton will become hot. All the heat of your eyes will come out. This is very important exercise, especially for the children. At least twice in a week, you should force it. The another exercise which is important is the eye exercise, is blinking of your eyes. So everybody blink at least 10 times like this, close, open and close. Do your movement of your eyes, open and close. Very good. Make sure you blink both the eyes, huh? Open and close. Now stretch maximum, open your eyes as much you can, stretch. Especially the people who wear glasses, very important. Then close your eyes tight, hold there. Relax. Now look to the right. Then look to the left. Right. Left. Relax. Now try to see the tip of the nose. Very good. Then try to see in the mid of your eyebrows. Look up. Yes. Now make the circle of your eyeball. First left, up, right, down. 3 times clockwise and 3 times anti-clockwise. Very good. Now one last movement. Make a cup of your hand and cross it and place it on your eyes. You lock it in such a way that you see only darkness. And then try to open and close your eyes and see only darkness. Very good. This is so important because entire day you are exposed to the lights and you see the light so close to you. This is important for your eye to see the darkness. Relax, loose. Yes, now rub your hand hard and spread it and rub it on your face. Very good. Relax. How much time we have, Anurag?
2 more minutes.
Okay. Now in 2 minutes, I'll be talking about one very important, which I was talking about emotions, is deep breathing. I want everybody to do one small deep breathing exercise. So sit straight, everybody. Sit straight for a while, back straight. Keep your hand on your thighs or on the desktop, whichever you're comfortable. Close your eyes, everybody. Breathe in slowly. And then slowly breathe out. Try to count 5 when you breathe in. Count 5 when you breathe out. Inhale. Exhale. Last time. Inhale. Exhale. Say to your mind and your heart, you can win this fearful time. You remain positive and you will spread only positivity around you. I hope you enjoyed the session, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Anish, and thank you, entire members and teams. I'm Dr. Vishwas from SitFit. We do such programs. And thank you once again. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Vishwas, thank you very much. Really appreciated your entire session. It's just like feels so special, you know. I mean, especially when you do things and the way you moderate the entire thing, it's really amazing. You know, more than exercise, the way you moderate the entire thing, I think that makes a lot of difference. People do exercise, but when,
This has actually the same effect.
yeah, yeah.
This actually has same effect after we put Navratan tail on the head. So such coolness with your session we have got. So thank you very much to both of you.
No,
It's
it's
really a
important.
wonderful, and
Thank you,
you
Anish.
accepted our invitation at such a short notice. So thank you very much.
No, I will be very
And
happy.
we look forward to more sessions like this.
Yeah, please, please. And again, guys, all the members, please take care of your emotions. This is going to be a very tough time. So it is very important you all remain emotionally very stable and positive. Wherever you need my help, I'm there always. But make sure be happy and try to spread happiness.
Then why do you tell to go to the
Very tough time. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank
Stay
you very
home.
much.
Stay healthy. You can see me on SitFit Yoga. That's my website. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So members, this was Dr. Vishwas, and he is one of that amazing person who always full of energy and positivity itself. So if in case you have any requirements or anything in relation to yoga and yours, you can always reach out to him. Now we're gonna.
I think Manoj, you have some noises at the back, I believe.
My kids are playing actually on PS4. I'll ask
Yeah.
them to.
So can you please shift either to other room?
Yeah. Okay.
Because session will be long. So
Correct. Now Ashutosh is there, Mehtaji.
Anurag,
Yeah. So it was a great session by Dr. Vishwas, and now it's time for us to get back to our profession, and let's learn a little bit about BEPS initiative on transfer pricing and how the transfer pricing plays an important role in the region here. I mean, many of the businesses are doing like a lot of GCC trades, so I continue to hear a lot of things about that. All the countries are pretty serious about transfer pricing, and there are very key initiatives and key nuances that every business needs to take into consideration to comply with regulations, and at the same time take precautionary measures before any report submission, right? So Mr. Ashutosh Rastogi is going to share a little bit more details about the entire session. He's a partner in tax, GST, and transfer pricing services.
Yeah, I think that Anurag, that will take later. We have to first have one important announcement made to the members, and after that we can take that.
Okay, so
but we would like to welcome Mr. Ashutosh. I think he's online. Let me just.
Yeah, he's there. He's there.
Yeah, Mr. Ashutosh, you are able to hear us?
Yes, very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Most welcome. And we're just going to take 4-5 more minutes, and then we can start your session.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all the members for again joining online to our next series of webinar. Thank you very much. We thought that it's a good time because everyone is working from home, so we can start first 15 minutes with some exercises, mainly as Anurag mentioned, lungs, eyes, neck, and shoulder. So I think it's very important. Every day we should at least spend 5 or 10 minutes on these 4 organs. I'm not going to talk something about on the technical topic because that's not my area of expertise, but I'm going to just make an appeal on a very important initiative which our consulate has taken. So this is an appeal to members to support to combat COVID-19. We all know that so many people are affected because of COVID-19, so many laborers, so many families who are not able to go to India, so many people who have lost their jobs, so many people who have been terminated because of the economic situations. But we sincerely hope and pray for all of your well-being and safety. Please stay safe at home until government doesn't allow us to go outside and do our normal activities. Just wanted to inform you that the Consulate General of India in Dubai and other officials are helping our sisters and brothers from India and other community because of the present critical situation resulted from the widespread of COVID-19. And they are taking all possible steps to help the people in need, including delivering cooked foods, delivering grocery kits, which has the basic grocery items like the atta, rice, oil, uh, salt, and one more thing. And they are also supporting government by taking care of isolation centers, taking care of quarantine facilities, providing medical facilities to the patients. And as we all know, ICAI Dubai and its members, and you all have always stood up in such kind of initiatives for the humanitarian purposes. This is an unprecedented situation, and we all have to come forward and help our own brothers and sisters, which is required much more now than any other time period. To support that, the chapter, after discussion with the executive committee, has instantly supported with 50,000 dirhams from the chapter funds to serve the cooked foods to the needy people and also to distribute kits. As per the report given by the consulate up till yesterday, 2,800 people were served cooked foods and 100 people were served with the grocery kits. So thanks to all the members for this such good initiative on behalf of ICAI Dubai chapter. Now the next appeal is with you. We need your support and want you to be part of this contribution drive on the humanitarian grounds. We appeal to each one of you and your family members to actively participate. Tomorrow we'll send you a circular of appeal for your support. What procedure we have done, that we have developed a Google form just to create an expression of interest where people can express their interest either to contribute cash or in kind, such as bulk commodities, bulk atta, bulk rice, whatever they have, masks, sanitizers, whatever, if they can support it. So we have developed the Google form. There is no compulsion and there is no minimum or maximum amount also, because no contribution is small or big. Any contribution matters, and this is an act of kindness, and your decision to contribute towards the welfare of others will go a long way in making an impact that matters and in leaving footprints in this sense of time. With this appeal, tomorrow when you receive the form, please have a read of it and see if you want to fill the Google form and support in whatever way possible. Once again, thank you very much. And we look forward for your continued support in joining these webinars. And thank you, Executive Committee, for supporting all the initiatives of the chapter. Thank you very much. Over to you, Manoj, to introduce Mr. Ashutosh. Manoj instrumental in bringing Mr. Ashutosh, who has a lot of experience, but I leave to Manoj to introduce him. Manoj, you are able to hear me?
But before Manoj, you start, can we have a big round of applause for our chairman? He is working really day and night along with the executive committee. His guidance and every single thing helping us to really stay motivated, and he motivates the entire team. He motivates not only us, many people. So a big kudos to our chairman, who really come up with each time something very, very nice. And this appeal means a lot to all of us, and we all are supporting, and we request each one of you to support. So kudos to you, Chairman, for all the way encouraging us and guiding us. Thank you very much. Over to you, Manoj.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Sir. Thank you, Chairman Sir. So you guys both have touched already on COVID, so I will not touch upon that. I will come straight to the point. Transfer pricing, BEPS, OECD, these all are linked with ESR. Right now in UAE and GCC market, we are just thinking ESR is a formality and we are eagerly waiting for notifications. And rather than we are eagerly waiting for announcement on extension of the notification dates. So everybody is Googling what is the date extension for ESR in different authorities and all. But since I am handling for my company for international taxation point of view, ESR is just a startup. It's kind of a start point to bring more regulatory practices in the region. ESR linked with the BEPS, then with the OECD and as per OECD guidelines, and then comes the transfer pricing. So for that, today we have with us Mr. Ashutosh Rastogi. He is well expert in transfer pricing, BEPS, OECD guidelines, including ESR. So just give a quick brief about him. Ashutosh is the partner of Amicus Law Firm, and he is a tax counsel advisor with more than 15 years of experience, especially in transfer pricing, international taxation. He provides transfer pricing planning and documentation services to many Fortune 500 companies. He regularly urges tax transfer pricing matters before tax tribunals and high courts, and he has successfully represented companies like D Diamond, Pyramid Consulting, Renu Creators for their landmark judgments before Delhi Tribunal. And one excellent thing is that he was rated the best transfer pricing lawyer of the year by Finance Award in 2017 and recommended by Legal 500 consecutively for 7 years from 2014 till 2020. It means including current year, transfer pricing advisory and dispute resolution services. Ashutosh has done LLB from Delhi University and LLM from New York University. So let us welcome with silently applause Mr. Ashutosh Rastogi to take us through the linkage between OECD guidelines, ESR, BEPS, and transfer pricing. And I request Mr. Rastogi to share with practical knowledge on the case laws so that rather than case studies, we will get some more knowledge on how the interpretation of the law by the lawyers, by the expert, and by the courts. So over to you, Mr. Ashutosh.
Yeah.
Will you be having a presentation?
Yes, yes. So I have a presentation.
Yeah, just a moment. So I'll.
You will have to enable.
Yeah. And then you can log. Once you share presentation, you can log so that others can't intervene. I've done. Can you do that? We are able to see that now.
You're able to see. Okay, now.
Yeah.
I do not know. So is that fine now, or there's a locking command also that needs to be given now?
You can stop anyone to annote, and you can lock also.
Right. So thank you so much for this opportunity, ICAI Dubai, and thank you Manoj, thank you Anish Mehta ji, Sunil Batra ji, and Anurag ji for allowing me this forum to share my views on BEPS in the context of transfer pricing. It is a difficult time for us. It is an international problem, that we are grappling with. And I guess after an international problem, we are also now discussing another issue of global importance, which is BEPS, and what are the implications that BEPS will have on the transfer pricing practice policies, for various countries and especially the UAE region. So we've put together a slide deck. So I'll just run you through the contents of the slide deck that we have before us. So the idea of this presentation is to give a overview of the BEPS measures, especially on transfer pricing. I understand that there may be many people in the audience who may be completely uninitiated with transfer pricing. So to begin with, we will have a few basic slides on what transfer pricing is all about. Then we will cover briefly understanding of OECD and the BEPS project. We will then briefly discuss the ESR regulations introduced in UAE in April 2019, and also the CBCR regulations. Compare them with the OECD guidance on the same. BEPS action points or action plans are also there, which have implications on transfer pricing. This session is a 1.5 hour session broadly, and not that we don't have time enough on our hands to discuss each BEPS action plan in detail, but I will try to summarize the gist of each action plan. And of course, then we will cover the case studies. These are transfer pricing case studies and some case studies which pertain to the BEPS action plans as well. And finally, but most importantly, what are the important points which tax heads, CFOs, you know, and yeah, there's some disturbance coming in. Can you please mute your mic? Okay. So finally, move on to the important planning implications, you know, which the tax heads and the CFOs must bear in mind in the post-BEPS environment. Beginning with the basics, what is transfer pricing? So we have before us few basic definitions of transfer pricing. First of all, transfer price. Transfer price is simply the price at which related parties are transacting with each other. Arm's length price, on the other hand, is the price at which the related parties should ideally be transacting with each other. So arm's length price is the ideal price or the market price at which we are often required to determine. When we talk about the whole process of fixing the related party pricing, that is called transfer pricing. Transfer pricing per se is just a process. It could give you the right price or it could give you the incorrect price. So in other words, you can have transfer pricing equal to arm's length pricing, or it can end up being mispricing as well. And then transfer pricing documentation. Documentation is simply a record of how you have arrived at the arm's length price, what transfer pricing method you have used, and how you are justifying your price to be at arm's length. So these are some of the basic concepts of transfer pricing. Now, just one more point, which is an extremely important point, is that why is there a need for transfer pricing regulations? So we require transfer pricing regulations because different countries have different tax rates, and a multinational enterprise has units or subsidies set up in different countries and has the opportunity, therefore, to shift profits from a high tax jurisdiction to a low tax jurisdiction. In order to check that, and so that the tax base of a country is not eroded, we need transfer pricing regulations, which will help us ascertain what is the fair profit or the correct price at which the different units of the multinational enterprise should be dealing with each other. And therefore, the tax base of every country is safeguarded. So it is the differential tax rates across the countries, which lead to the requirement for transfer pricing regulations. So far, we've just had a look at the transfer pricing basics. I will just now quickly touch base on the different transfer pricing methods which are available to taxpayers. These transfer pricing methods are the 5 transfer pricing methods which are also advocated by OECD. Cup method is the simplest method, wherein when a related party sells to another related party at a particular price, we want to know whether that price is arm's length price or not. We try to find out a comparable transaction for the same transaction. We directly test the price in that manner. So if a company A is selling, let's say, a bag of cement to company B, we try to find out in a third party scenario, what would be the price of similar bag B like when they are dealing between, when there's a dealing between unrelated parties. So in this situation, we are directly testing the price. Then there are other methods where in case we do not have data on price, but in case when we don't have data on price, we have to resort to other indirect methods wherein we test the profitability. So other than cup method, all the other methods are profit-based methods. So the resale price method or the cost plus method, here we are testing the gross margin of the taxpayer. In resale price scenario, we are going to test the gross profit on sales. In the cost plus method, again, we will test the gross profit, generally of a manufacturer. Resale price method and cost plus method, we are testing the gross profit. Gross profit is still closer to the price because when we compute the gross profit, we are not factoring the overheads or the indirect expenses. Therefore, you're testing the profitability that you're testing to that extent is not so diluted. When we move on to other methods like the transactional net margin method, in TNMM, what happens is that you test the net profit. So you even take into account the indirect expenses or the overheads. And then what happens is that your profitability gets significantly diluted by the various third-party indirect costs, overhead expenses that come into the picture. And the impact of the related party transaction to that extent gets diluted, the impact that you're trying to assess. right? So the idea of this table before you is that as we are moving away from cup method towards transactional net margin method, so we are diluting the accuracy of our testing. So from testing price directly, we move on to testing gross profit. And further, when we move on to test net margin, the accuracy of our testing gets diluted. But having said that, because of data limitations, TNMM most of the time is the only method that you are left with to apply, because there is not sufficient data available to test the price directly or even to test the gross margins. So that, and then profit split method. Profit split method is a method which is very rarely used. It normally comes into play when multiple parties are developing an intangible. They are all together contributing to the intangible. And also it is not possible to find out the segmental returns for each party separately. So what we do in profit split method is that we find out the system profit, we deduct the returns earned by which are attributable to each entity for their routine functions, and whatever supernormal profit is left, we then divide that between the different parties based on some criteria. There is a lot of subjectivity in profit split method, and it is, like I said, used seldom. So I believe that since the audience is by and large from the CA and the tax and finance community, at some point or the other, you would have come across these methods and you would have had some basic understanding of these. With this basic understanding of transfer pricing, I'm just going to now move on to the next unit of the presentation, which is the role of OECD and the BEPS project. So now, friends, just to give you a background on OECD. So OECD as on date has 36 members, and OECD as a body has been shaping the policy on tax worldwide to set a framework for various countries to have their domestic legislation follow, and also facilitate international tax and commerce. From time to time, OECD has come out with guidance on the various current topics. Its recent most guidance has been on financial transactions, even more recently on TT shopping. And now again, OECD is doing path-breaking work on international taxation and what the tax environment should be like in the COVID environment. So on April 3rd, 2020, it came up with, what is the impact of the COVID on the tax treaty framework. Coming to OECD's contribution on transfer pricing, OECD guidelines on transfer pricing are a reference point for countries worldwide to not only devise their own transfer pricing legislation, but also to have OECD guidelines play the role of a gap filler. So wherever there is a gap in the understanding in the domestic law, OECD guidelines are often referred to. In 1995, OECD published its first set of guidelines, which explained in detail what the various methods, transfer pricing methods are, how they should be applied. And this guidance has been updated from time to time. It was revised in 2010. And then after the BEPS action plans, a lot of effort has been made to update the guidelines time to time with the promulgation of each BEPS action plan. And in 2017, the latest guidance has come about, which is incorporating the recommendations of the BEPS action plans. Since this is a seminar for UAE and UAE region primarily and the Middle East, there is also a slide where we discuss how UAE has been working together with OECD. So since 2006, there has been interaction between UAE and OECD on tax treaty networks in Middle East and North Africa. So this relationship started with annual seminars, and in July 2014, UAE became a member of OECD, official member of OECD. And since then, there has been no turning back. UAE has also taken active role in implementing the BEPS minimum standards. And on May 16, 2018, it became a member of the BEPS inclusive framework of OECD, wherein the inclusive framework is basically a body of countries which are involved in the implementing and monitoring of the BEPS standard. And it is not surprising that in April 2019, owing to the close interaction with OECD, ESR regulations were also introduced in UAE, and at the same time, CBCR regulations were also introduced pursuant to the BEPS Action Plan 13. We will look at these in a little more detail in the subsequent slides. So now, my friends, let's just have a understanding of the rationale for BEPS. Why BEPS actually? Why was there a need felt to have something like BEPS action plans? So even before before the BEPS action plans were promulgated, and before all this master file CBCI and all this happened, there were tax treaties, there were transfer pricing regulations, but still it was felt that the existing tax framework was not sufficient to prevent multinational companies from avoiding taxes. So multinational companies were avoiding taxes without doing anything illegal. They were doing this all within the legal framework. And there were plenty of stories, and we have culled out some of the stories and put them on a slide before you. So you can see for yourself, for example, Starbucks was having significant operations in United Kingdom, but the amount of tax that was paying was nowhere commensurate with the sale that was making in that region. Similarly, you have cases of Amazon, Google, and Apple. All of these were carrying out significant economic activity in the countries where their headquarters were situated, but at the same time, the amount of tax that they were paying in the same country was nowhere proportionate to the economic activity. Now, this led the G20 to think that does our tax framework require a rethink? And G20 got in touch with OECD and asked them to come up with measures on how to strengthen the tax net, and how to come up with measures to prevent what we call as the base erosion and profit shifting. When OECD commenced its study, it came to the conclusion that a lot of profit shifting was taking place for a number of reasons. And when you actually summarize those reasons were the hybrid mismatches, the use of special purpose entity vehicles, and one prominent reason which came up in that was transfer pricing. So it was felt that there was a need to have effective countermeasures, which are now called the BEPS measures or the BEPS action plans, to fix the tax environment which was prevailing then. So consequent to this thought process, OECD commenced its work, and OECD in 2013 published a report on BEPS, which was presented to the G20 finance ministers in Moscow. And after a lot of deliberation and discussion, a lot of drafts were released for public discussion, comments. Finally, in October 5, 2015, OECD released the BEPS action plans, which are 15 action plans covering various aspects of international taxation. So in the slide before us, we have summarized the 15 action plans, and you would see that in the action plan 8, 9, 10, and 13, the highlighted action plans pertain to transfer pricing. So transfer pricing action plans within the BEPS framework is one subset of the action plans which will help the countries to minimize profit shifting and base erosion. Apart from that, there are various other action plans as well, on which also work is going on simultaneously. For our purpose in this session, I'm going to confine myself only to the transfer pricing BEPS action plans. So these action plans are Action Plan 8, Action Plan 9 and 10, pertaining to intangibles, risk and capital, high risk transactions, and Action Plan 13, which is relevant for UAE especially, which provides guidance on transfer pricing documentation and CBCR. So just a quick overview of the various action plans pertaining to transfer pricing. So when OECD examined the profit shifting and base erosion as it was happening in the pre-BEPS world, it came to the conclusion that economic value creation and payment of taxes is not necessarily going hand in hand. Economic activity is taking place significantly in a particular jurisdiction, but despite the transfer pricing regulations being present there, the the country is not able to capture its due share in value creation. This compelled OECD to introduce action point 8 and 9, which focus upon ensuring that your tax payment is in line with the value creation. Then there were some other action plans as well pertaining to intra-group services and passive association, which talks about financial transactions. So those are covered in action point 10. Action point 13 deals with guidance on transfer pricing documentation. Until BEPS, until OECD came up with the action plan 13, transfer pricing regulations were laid down by various countries. Transfer pricing documentation had to be made, but this whole affair was extremely localized. There was a transfer pricing report which would talk of the economic activity which is carried out in the country. What are the functions, assets, risks of the company which is incorporated in a particular country. There's only focus on the activity which is being carried out by a multinational enterprise in that country. The tax department has no clue as to what is the global supply chain of the multinational enterprise looking like. And it was felt that the fact that the tax administration does not have sufficient information on what is happening across the supply chain, there are significant tax leakages. Multinational companies are able to get away with there is still significant profit shifting simply because the tax administration is poorly equipped with information. The counter to that was to introduce measures such as master file and country by country report, which will provide the tax administration with sufficient information to empower the tax administration to have a very strong risk-based assessment. It would be able to pick up cases for scrutiny. It would also be able to ask more pertinent questions, and it would be able to ascertain whether in a particular place where you are paying high tax, do you really have enough substance, and in another particular place where you are not paying any tax, what is exactly happening. So all this has happened as a result of the pre-BEPS environment. We are going to look at these action plans in a little more detail in the subsequent slides.
Ashutosh ji, sorry to interrupt. Can this presentation be shared later on?
Yes, absolutely.
So, okay, no, otherwise people are taking these screenshots. So just.
No issue at all. I'm sure this has been made for purpose of sharing, and.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, certainly. So that was a background, to why, how this all happened. Why do we talk about BEPS? Why do we need BEPS? Now I come to a topic which would be close to the heart of most of the chartered accountants here, ESR and CBCR in UAE. I must confess that, I am not a UAE transfer pricing expert. I am a transfer pricing expert in India, and I have first-hand knowledge with the Indian transfer pricing regulations. But still, I wanted to put up some slides on ESR and CBCR just to contextualize ESR and CBCR in the context of BEPS and give the audience an understanding of how ESR and how CBCR, how they've come about in the UAE context. I'm sure that the UAE chartered accountants would be more aware even than me on the nitty-gritties and the technicalities of these, this legislation. So we will just walk through the broad framework of ESR and CBCR for UAE. So first, coming to the rationale and how this actually came about. So in March 2019, it was unfortunate that European Union listed UAE as one of the jurisdictions which was facilitating offshore structures. In view of the European Union, there was not enough teeth in the UAE regulations to ensure that the companies which are being set up in UAE are actually carrying out economic activity there or not, whether or not they are shell companies or they are just companies which have been set up to take benefit of the tax treaty framework. In view of European Union, there was not enough in the UAE legislation to prevent that misuse. So European Union shortlisted UAE as one of the nations where this harmful tax competition kind of practice was going on. Now, as a result of that shortlisting, immediately UAE, and also because UAE has now been working very closely with OECD, on 30th April 2019, UAE came up with the economic substance regulations. So these substance regulations are actually complying with the OECD BEPS Action Plan 5 as well. So as I just talked about, that OECD now is laying a lot of emphasis on what work or what activities actually taking place in a particular jurisdiction. And we will see that emphasis echoing in the transfer pricing action plans as well, which we will just look at subsequently. This is just a very high level macro bird's eye view of the economic substance regulations in the UAE. So dealing with the substance aspect, what the regulations mandate is that for certain kinds of economic activities like banking, insurance, investment fund management, etc., within the UAE, there have to be certain substance criteria that should be met. So one of the substance criteria is that the high level or the top management of those companies which are situated in UAE, they need to be directing and managing the activity. Then there has to be core income generating activity which has to be undertaken in UAE. Again, to ensure that the company is not just set up as a facade to enjoy the treaty benefits, there must be certain employees, there must be adequate employees, there must be adequate operating expenditure and assets as well. Adequacy being a relative term, which the ESR regulations clarify, which will vary on a case-to-case basis. So in a sense, what economic substance regulations have done is that to ensure that companies are not taking benefit of the favorable treaty framework, they must meet certain criteria in terms of substance, and certain filing is required on meeting those substance criteria with the relevant authorities. I will not go into the nitty-gritties of that. All that is there in the legislation. But the moot point is that ESR regulations has not just suddenly come about in UAE. It has come about in UAE in response to an international undercurrent, which is the BEPS undercurrent, which is the work being done by the OECD. And that is what has also compelled UAE also to introduce the CBCR regulations, which also were introduced on the same date. So in this slide before you, what we have done is that, again, we have just captured a comparison between the UAE CBCR regulations, OECD, and India. So CBCR filing, just to give you a brief background of CBCR, is that CBCR is basically a set of multinational, group level statistics for any multinational company. It is a set of financial statistics at the headquarter level for the group as a whole, pertaining to various parameters like the profit, worldwide number of employees, worldwide profit after tax, etc. And also how it is distributed amongst the various, across the various subsidiaries. The idea of CBCR is that once it is with the tax administration, it would be able to make a world level, it would be able to have a world level mapping of the multinational enterprises supply chain, and would be in a better position to smell possibility of tax avoidance in the respective countries. So this slide is by and large, a slide which is information based, and you can see that the threshold limit for filing CBCR, even in UAE, is not deviating too much from the international standard. So the international standard set by OECD is USD 840 million. And in UAE, the standard that we have is USD 855 million. In India, the same is USD 825 million. So if the group consolidated revenue exceeds this threshold, only in that circumstance you are required to file a CBCR. And CBCR has to be submitted by the parent company, or the parent company may also designate an alternate reporting entity for file the CBCR. But unlike master file and the local files, which have to be submitted by the respective countries, CBCR will be submitted only at one place. And once the CBCR is submitted, it can also be obtained by other countries through an exchange of information mechanism, which will be put in place through treaties which are entered into separately. So if a country has access to CBCR from the parent, then other countries can also have access to the same, provided they get in touch with the country's government through the exchange of information mechanism and are able to obtain it. So in the slide before us, what we have are the key parameters, financial parameters, which must be disclosed in the CBCR statement at the group level. As you can see, the financial parameters between UAE, OECD, and India, these are identical. In fact, if I would put the list of all the other countries that I know of, these parameters would still be the same. And the reason for that is that, like I said, the CBCR reporting is to happen at one centralized level by the parent company. Now, other countries too would need this information. Plus, this information is such that it has to be prepared at group level and cannot be duplicated everywhere. So it is all the more necessary that it must be uniform. The requirement for CBCR information by different countries must be uniform, because it will be extremely cumbersome if each and every country starts asking for its own set of financial parameters, given the fact that it has to be prepared at a group level. This is a slide wherein we are comparing. If you compare economic substance regulation in UAE with the country by country regulation, country by country reporting. So we can see that they came out at the same time in response to the BEPS and the OECD initiative. Both are pursuant to BEPS action plan, ESR pursuant to action 5, and CBCR pursuant to action 13. In both, you need to do a filing with the relevant authority or the competent authority. What I understand is that ESR right now has been extended to only certain lines of businesses, and country by country reporting, however, subject to certain threshold, has to be filed across the board, regardless of the economic activity. So here is some more filing requirements. I'll not go too much into detail on these because, like I said, UAE chartered accountants would know more than me on this subject. But nonetheless, just a comparative framework, comparative reference point for you all. You can go through this more in detail when the slide deck is made available. I'll come to the next BEPS action plan, which is action plan on intangibles. Now, this is where all the tax heads and the CFOs, especially from a UAE context, you need to be very careful, because you need to understand that after BEPS, the understanding of intangible and the tax treatment on intangible has changed significantly. How does BEPS perceive an intangible? More importantly, how do we in the BEPS era perceive the return to an intangible? So in the pre-BEPS world, it was sufficient to own an intangible to be entitled to its return. So if I, as a company, or as a multinational group, have created an intangible, if I have the legal right to the intangible, the patent, or the trademark, if that is in my name, I can be assured that I will also get the return for the intangible. So what I can do is that I can very easily register my intangible in a low tax jurisdiction. And from there, I can license it out to various other countries where the intangible is actually being exploited. And what I will then do is that ensure that all the royalties for the intangible go and sit in the low tax jurisdiction. Now, this is exactly the kind of situation which the OECD wanted to counter. So they came up with the BEPS action plan on intangible. How have they actually countered this is that they have changed the frame of reference for determining the return to an intangible. So they have said that in order to ascertain where the return of an intangible should go, you have to determine where are the so-called DEMPE functions being performed. So now what are these DEMPE functions? So DEMPE functions are the actual value creating functions for developing, enhancing, maintaining, protecting, and exploiting the intangible. So it doesn't matter today in the post-BEPS world whether I legally own an intangible or not. I will not be entitled to the supernormal return on the intangible or the royalty on the intangible until and unless I am also performing these functions. And that brings us to the next question, that what happens if I'm actually I'm funding the intangible. What is the return that I would be entitled to? So what OECD guidance says is that if you are merely funding the development of an intangible, but you're not performing any of the development functions, enhancement, maintenance, or any of these functions, then you will only be entitled to a risk adjusted return on which you will normally get when you provide those funds in the market, right? So that is the only return. That is a risk adjusted standard return that funding is entitled to. Whereas the supernormal return from an intangible, so let's say where an intangible becomes phenomenally successful and you rake in a lot of profit, the return over and above the risk adjusted return will go to that country, that jurisdiction, from where all the functions pertaining to the development, enhancement, maintenance, and protection of the intangible were being undertaken. What do you mean by these functions? So we'll discuss that also in detail, that what is the nature of these functions. But for time being, just understand that the whole philosophy in the BEPS world now focuses upon performance of the critical tasks. So for example, if we are talking about return from research and development, who is entitled to the return on R&D? My question as a transfer pricing expert would be, where are the top shots who are responsible for giving direction to the R&D program? Where are they situated? Are they situated in Dubai? Are they situated in Ireland? Are they situated in India? If they are not situated here, then you cannot get the royalty on the patent. The royalty will only follow the place where these people are actually situated, from where they are making those decisions, from where they are spearheading the R&D program. And supposing merely the funding is happening from UAE, then the UAE subsidiary will only get a risk adjusted return on the funding and no more than that. So this has completely changed the way we are now undertaking the tax planning for intangibles, for holding companies, and for international tax efficiency frameworks. So action point 9 deals with risk and capital. On risk and capital, what OECD is saying is that one of the main reasons why a lot of tax avoidance or profit shifting was happening was because there was a lot of emphasis on contractual documents in the pre-BEPS world. So let's say I want to set up a contract manufacturing facility, or I want to set up an R&D facility somewhere in India. What do? I engage somebody. I set up a subsidiary in India and I do a contract with my Indian subsidiary. And in the contract, I insert such clauses wherein I ensure that the entire risk of the operation will lie with me, and Indian company will be projected as a low risk entity. So because of the contractual clauses, I strip the Indian entity of the risk of operations. I compensate the Indian entity for any loss that it will suffer. I simply say that in the contract that the Indian entity will be a cost plus entity. It will earn a markup, some reasonable markup based on benchmarking for the functions it performs. But what is actually happening in terms of the work that the Indian entity is doing? So let's say if Indian entity were doing some kind of R&D work, it comes to the knowledge of the tax administration that the functions at the Indian entity are not just routine functions, but the people there are also taking significant decisions in respect of the R&D work. They are determining the budget for R&D. They are deciding whether to pursue R&D on a particular product or not. They are actually the ones who are giving the main advice on how R&D has to be taken forward to the headquarters. So the headquarters may be overseas, but R&D, the critical decision making on R&D is happening in India. Then the question is, then can you actually call that Indian entity as a low-end back office or a cost plus entity? So OECD says that in such a situation, the answer is a clear no, because there is a divergence between what you have contractually documented and what is happening in reality. Hence, the emphasis by OECD on analyzing the contractual arrangement, on trying to understand which are the significant economic risks which are actually being borne by the transacting parties. So OECD now in the post BEPS environment places a lot of emphasis on actual conduct, actual decision making, and which we which we can actually call substance. So substance in the transfer pricing context is basically what we call the significant people functions. So contractually, it doesn't matter whatever you may write in the document. Question is who, for example, if you want to understand who, with whom lies the market risk. Now, who's taking the marketing and the pricing decisions? At what price to sell, how much to sell, volume. If these people who are deciding the marketing strategy, the pricing strategy, if they are located in India, then we can say, yes, the Indian company will be taking the market risk, price risk. Similarly, the credit risk, who decides whether to approve a customer or not. So if tomorrow the customer is unable to pay, even financially, risk may be borne by the headquarters, who may be willing to compensate for the for non-payment by customer. But if the credit evaluation team was sitting in India, then the risk would still lie with the Indian company. This is the new thinking which has come up in the post-BEPS world. So in the post-BEPS environment, whenever transfer pricing experts, they try to do a functional mapping, for any multinational enterprise. These are the kind of questions that they will ask, that where are your people located, who's doing what in the different regions. And this is what you also need to capture in your transfer pricing documentation in the post-BEPS world. So this is, here we are just looking at substance in the transfer pricing context. So which I have already talked about, that your risks and return will follow the significant people functions. And in various jurisdictions, the tax authorities actually have survey powers. Like they do have survey powers in India, which they also use for the advanced pricing arrangement mechanism, wherein they try to look at what is actually happening at the site, what is happening in the office premises or the office factories of a taxpayer, and they try to dovetail the contractual document with what is happening in reality. So gone are those days when we could just say, okay, let's set up a holding company in Mauritius, or let's just set up a holding company in Dubai. Until and unless you will have substance there, you just can't set up a holding company or an intermediary company anywhere and get away with it. Neither can you get away with it in the tax treaty framework anymore because of the various treaty limitation of benefit clauses that we are having, and also the MLI now. Nor can you get away with it in the transfer pricing context. So these are the points which transfer pricing, which tax heads and the CFOs, they need to keep in mind that in the post-BEPS world, now they're dealing with a completely different reality. To summarize, so that party which is undertaking the significant functions bears the risks, and it must also be attributed the return for the same. And the entity which is merely funding will get no more than a risk-adjusted return. So when you're doing a supply chain planning and you're trying to allocate your returns across different countries, you can no longer just contractually allocate returns. You will have to ensure that you have some substance in the different countries. So for example, in a particular country, you are saying that there is a distribution operation that's taking place. Then you need to have a distribution team which is equipped to make that, to undertake those distribution operations. They must be evaluating the credit profile of the customers so that they can be attributed with credit risk. If they are not evaluating the credit profile, then, and headquarters is evaluating the credit profile, the credit risk will still lie with the headquarters. So these questions, tax heads, CFOs need to keep in mind. I'll come to action point 10. And briefly we will, so action point 10 is basically talking about low value adding intra-group services. So most of you would be aware of these intra-group services in the nature of accounting, auditing, human resources, information technology. Now OECD also, as an attempt to minimize the disputes, transfer pricing disputes around the benchmarking of these low value added services, has come up with a recommendation in its action plan that for these low value added services, just go for a low markup of 5%, determine what is the cost incurred in providing these services, arrive at the cost pool, allocate the cost between the different subsidies or the member countries which are availing the service, apply a markup, and that's it. Your transfer pricing puzzle is solved. So this is guidance given by OECD on this issue, but it is not without its own set of controversy, for the simple reason that transfer pricing markups, there's no one size hat which fits all. Africa has its own benchmarking, Asia, developing countries have their own benchmarking, and you will find that the markups tend to vary significantly when you actually do a benchmarking. So 5% may be appropriate in the OECD countries, but in India, even for the back office services, if you will actually take a database and run a search for companies providing in IT services, in accounting services, you will find that the markups are much higher. So that remains a question mark on how successful this action plan will be. But nonetheless, countries are still laying down safe harbor rules for low value added intra-group services. And they are stipulating some markups in the range of 5 to 10%. Coming to another aspect of the same action plan, which is called passive association. Passive association is basically getting some implicit benefit from being a member of a much larger group. So a subsidiary company can benefit significantly from having a very strong parent. It will get benefit in terms of its overall credit rating. So I will just explain with the help of one example here. In the slide before you, we have subsidiary company S and parent company P. Subsidiary company S has a credit rating of BAA and parent company has a credit rating of AAA. Now, when the lender comes and it gives a loan to subsidiary company, it determines its credit rating to be BAA on a standalone basis without considering the financial background of the parent company. But when the lender will take a overall holistic assessment, it will also factor the fact that there is a very strong parent company behind the subsidiary company and it has its backing, even though it may not have an explicit backing in the form of a formal guarantee. But when you are a member of a much larger organization, there's always an implied support or backing. So what will happen is that when the lender will do its evaluation, the credit rating of subsidiary company S will move a notch up. And instead of BA, it will have a A credit rating because of the implicit support. Mind you, right now the parent company has not given an express guarantee to subsidiary company, but even with the implicit support, the rating has gone up. In the subsequent example, or in this example, what we are seeing is that the parent company gives a explicit guarantee. So what happens is that subsidiary companies' credit rating after the explicit guarantee becomes almost equivalent to that of the parent company, which is AAA. And what happens when the credit rating goes up? The moment credit rating goes up, the lender will charge a lower interest because its lending risk decreases. In this scenario, parent company will charge what is called a guarantee fee from the subsidiary company because parent company has given an explicit guarantee to subsidiary for its support. This fee is not required to be charged when parent company is providing an implicit support, because in that scenario, parent company is not doing anything out of the way or extending any extra help to the subsidiary company. Now, what OECD in this action plan has done is that it has documented these important aspects of implicit support, explicit support, and it has captured all this understanding in the latest OECD guidelines, transfer pricing guidelines published in 2017. So whenever tax heads, CFOs, or those who are decision makers for transfer pricing, when they have to consider the intra-group financial transactions, they must also consider the explicit and the implicit support factors, or what is called the passive association factors, whenever they are determining interest rate or laying down intra-group financial policies. Now, having discussed action points 8, 9, and 10, we quickly move on to the last transfer pricing related action plan, which talks about master file, local file, and CBCR, basically the transfer pricing documentation. So I've already discussed this, that the whole purpose of transfer pricing documentation under the BEPS framework is to strengthen the documentation exercise, make it more integrated worldwide, and rather than just a localized tool. And once that is done, the tax department is better equipped to ask the more relevant questions and also to more carefully pick up the cases for scrutiny. So OECD in its BEPS Action Plan 13 has proposed a 3-tier documentation. Master file, which will provide information at the group level. Local file, which provides information at the subsidiary level or the localized level. And CBCR, which is a set of financial statistics at the group level for all the countries which are comprising the consolidated group. Master file is a document which requires a lot of description on various facets of the group's functioning. So for example, what are the profit drivers of the group? What is the supply chain of the group like? What are the intangibles which are owned by the group as a whole? Where are you housing those intangibles? A general description of the transfer pricing policies of the group. And there is a lot of such qualitative information given in the master file. Kindly note that information in the master file is mostly qualitative. Very little quantitative information goes in the master file. But with whatever information that's going there, it is still sufficient for the tax administration to understand properly the global perspective on the multinational enterprise. There is one important aspect now for UAE. Even though UAE per se does not have regulations which require master file, but I understand that there are many companies having headquarters in UAE. They still have the responsibility to ensure that a master file is prepared for their group. So they have to manage that at the headquarter level, because what will happen is that in the other countries where the domestic legislation has been modified to stipulate master file requirement, they will get a request from those countries that please provide the master file. And master file, being a group level document, is better prepared at the headquarters rather than at the subsidiary level. So even though you may not require under the UAE law to prepare master file for a multinational company, in order to meet the requirement of the subsidies spread out over different countries, you should still prepare a master file. You will then pass on that base document or the master file to the respective country. That country may have some customized master file requirement. So the requirements that we have before us in the slides in front of you, these are the OECD master file requirements. Most of the countries have by and large followed these OECD requirements. Still, there are differences at the face of it. So there are some nominal differences. For example, if we take the Indian context, in India, there is a special requirement that for those countries which are contributing more than 10% to the total turnover or the profitability of the group, for those countries, we should also insert in the master file detailed functional analysis. Now, this is a deviation from the master file norm stipulated by OECD. So you will have these kind of customizations as you move from one country to another. But by and large, a base will be there, which will be common for all the countries. So what the headquarters can do is that it can prepare a basic master file, and it can then pass on that master file to the different countries. And there, those countries can then liaise with the local transfer pricing consultants to customize the master files and furnish with the tax authorities. Local file is something that I believe many of you would be well versed with. It is simply what we call the transfer pricing study, in which we prepare the functions, asset and risk analysis. We do the benchmarking, and finally we conclude that the transfer pricing is at arm's length. So local file is normally to be kept and maintained by the local subsidiary, and the tax authorities may issue a notice asking for the local file, and then you have to file it. Country by country report, we have just discussed that what it is. You know, it has some financial metrics. Almost world over, these requirements are same. What happens once you file the CBCR is that different countries, they can get in touch with each other through the exchange mechanisms. Now, these exchange mechanisms again have to be negotiated and agreed upon between the member countries. So these can be bilateral tax conventions, tax information exchange agreements, or there could be a multilateral exchange convention whereby they agree amongst themselves that yes, on request they will share the information. So the CBCR that you are filing in one country can very well travel to another country, and the other country can also use that information for its transfer pricing or tax risk assessment. So we can just have a look at some of the countries in the Middle East. So in terms of requirement for CBCR, you will see that most of the Middle East countries have now introduced regulations for CBCR. There are other countries where master file is still not required and local file is not required for some of the Middle East countries. But many of them are catching up, and as their corporate tax rates are going high or they are having positive tax rates, they are also trying that their tax base is not eroded. So they have introduced transfer pricing regulations, and they are also requiring that you must maintain transfer pricing documentation. Even a local file needs to be maintained. So Turkey is one of those where transfer pricing authorities are in fact very active, and they have last year introduced the master file and the CBCR regulations. Now we will just briefly touch upon the case studies for the DEMPE functions. So as I just mentioned to you that now in the post BEPS world, what matters is where the critical decision making of the function is being performed. So in that context, we have a case study before us where we have the parent or the premier and we have the subsidiary S. Now, what is the functions between the two are divided. Premier funds the R&D for patents. It performs the R&D function. Mind you, Premier has the R&D team. All the key decision making around patent defense, around licensing, all of that is done at the parent level. But what parent does is that for administrative convenience, it assigns the patent rights to the subsidiary, and it says that you do all the registration of the patents, you keep the patent registration with yourself, you register the patents in your name. I am only going to focus on my strength area, which is giving direction to the R&D. You take care of all the legal hassle around it. You do the administrative part of it. So S has employed lawyers who advise Premier on patent defense, but S does not have any R&D personnel. Now, if we were to do, but S legally has the rights to the patents. So if you will check the books, the patents are registered in the name of S. When it comes to licensing the patents to outside world and earning a return on that, a moot transfer pricing question comes up that where will the royalties flow? And whether will the royalties lie with S, which could be in a low tax jurisdiction, or will the royalties lie with P, Premier? Now, in the BEPS environment, the answer to that is very clear. That no matter that S holds the legal title to intangibles, it is the parent which is doing the critical decision making on the intangible, on the patents. Therefore, all the royalties will go to the parent company. So even if contractually you will stipulate that the royalties should flow to S, what will happen in the BEPS environment is that the tax administration of the parent company will disregard that. They will override the contract and they will say that in line with the OECD thinking and the BEPS thinking, and since we are also endorsing the same philosophy, we would assume that it is the parent company which should have earned the royalty and you have to pay a tax on this adjusted income. So tax heads and CFOs now need to wake up to this challenge. They need to align their legal registration with the functions as they're actually happening around the supply chain. This is just a variant of the previous slide with the additional fact that S is now also entering into licenses with third parties. That will not alter the situation whether S enters into licenses or the parent company directly enters into licensing. Licensing is merely a form of contract, but OECD is very clear that OECD now in the post-BEPS scenario will look at the locus will look at the place where the actual functions are taking place and will treat that country as the deserving country for earning those incomes. So my friends, what you need to understand in the post BEPS world is that substance in the transfer pricing context cannot be ignored. It cannot be ignored in the treaty environment, nor can it be ignored in the transfer pricing context. So as tax heads and CFOs, you need to understand that whenever you are doing some tax planning or you are trying to fix a margin or determine a pricing for any transaction, be it distribution, manufacturing, intangible, you have to think of that in terms of the number of employees that you have in a particular jurisdiction. So let's say if you are wanting to manufacture a particular, or you're wanting to set up contract manufacturing operations in a particular jurisdiction where labor is cheap, let's say India, or Vietnam, I'm sure not China anymore, but any of these jurisdictions where labor is scarce, you will have to ensure, if you have to give it the color of a contract manufacturing exercise, that back office unit does not undertake the critical decision making in respect of manufacturing. What product to manufacture, what is the budget for manufacturing, how many workers to be hired, that broad level, high level control has to be exercised by the parent. Otherwise, the unit is not really a contract manufacturer. It may very well be an entrepreneurial or a full risk manufacturer. So you have to bear that in mind. Accordingly, your agreement also has to be drafted, and your transfer pricing documentation also has to bring out those aspects on the actual performance of functions. Now we have an actual case study of a IT company. This is modeled on actual cases which I have argued before the tax tribunal, and thankfully won all of those cases. These cases were involving the IT companies, wherein the department's approach was that your back office IT companies in India can actually be compared with third-party companies in the information technology domain, but they are owning software products. They are also in some cases owning intangibles. They are also undertaking R&D. Whereas the facts in our case was that our taxpayer was a captive unit, 100% captive, providing services to the parent company. Parent company would in turn enter into contracts with third parties, get the work, and then outsource to the back office Indian entity. So in our scenario, the captive taxpayer was not owning any software products. It was merely providing services to the parent, which was in turn developing a software product. Ownership of the product vested with the parent company. An Indian company was only providing services. Indian company was also not doing any R&D. It was not owning any intangibles. But what has happened in India, and perhaps is still happening to a great extent, is that the back office IT companies are being compared with full-fledged independent entrepreneurial IT companies, which are doing all sorts of things, selling software products, owning intangibles, undertaking R&D. Now that is against the comparability norms in transfer pricing. So what we argued was that you can't really compare a back office IT company with a full-fledged IT company which sells software products. First of all, a company which sells software products and a company which provides software services, these are two different business models. So when you develop a software product, you may incur a huge cost initially, to develop the software product and to launch it. And later on, once the product is ready, you only do customization of the product. What happens in services is that you don't really own a product, you don't develop a product, but you do ERP, you do customization of these existing software products in the market. So these are two different business models. And then the back office IT company also does not own any intangibles. It does not do R&D. So based on the financial statements and the information available on public domain, we have argued in these cases, Pyramid IT Consulting, Corbis, and a number of other cases, Astra, which I have argued, that the companies that the tax department has put forward as comparables are not the right comparables for back office software service providers, and therefore they need to be excluded. So the moment you exclude those high markup companies, you get a more reasonable markup which the Indian taxpayers are already earning, and the transfer pricing adjustment gets deleted. This is a typical supply chain for a back office IT company, which is, let's say, set up in India, and the more entrepreneurial decision making is done overseas. So overseas, what happens in this typical setup is that, let's say you conceive of a software product. The whole cost benefit analysis of that software product, whether it will be successful or not, the R&D efforts, the feasibility market study, all that is done overseas. So like in the BEPS context, we were talking about the significant people functions. All those significant people functions are being done overseas in terms of the strategy, in terms of the marketing design and the conceptualization of the product. What is happening in India in this context is only the low value or the routine functions like coding, testing, and the post-production support regarding the, and more in the nature of rendering of software services. So let's say you have a software product, you want to add some music to it, you want to change its feel. So very specific instructions will be given by the parent company to the Indian company that you have to work on these lines. You have to complete this work by this time frame. This is called contract software development. So Indian company is acting in a very limited environment, not having the right to take any major calls, and therefore, given its limited function, it will be entitled to a low markup, a markup again which we will determine based on benchmarking. So this is how you do the supply chain mapping. This is, here we are just comparing the, so this was a kind of analysis which we had also put forward before the tribunal when we had to differentiate the low-end captive vis-a-vis the independent third-party companies which the tax department had taken. So ultimately, the key in winning those cases was to filter out the wrong comparables. So we were able to convince the tribunal that the service business model and the product business model are different. And when you have a company which is also selling software products, it is functionally completely different from a company which is just providing software services. And there are other differentiating factors as well. For example, ownership of intangibles, whether you undertake R&D or not, whether you undertake advertising, marketing, and turnover, of course, is another criteria based on which you have to accept or reject comparables. So you can't just compare, for example, this is a very common example in India and happens every now and then. The tax department takes Infosys Limited also as a comparable when they want to benchmark a back office software service provider in India. Now, Infosys, as you all know, is a company with more than 10,000 crores of turnover, and you can't compare a startup software service provider with 5 to 10 crore or even 100, anywhere below 100 crores turnover with Infosys. So this is a classic case of a pygmy being compared with a giant. And in a very important ruling, Agnity India by Delhi Tribunal, which was also later upheld by the High Court, it was held that you cannot compare a huge company with like Infosys with companies, software companies having turnover less than 100 crores. So these are all the important factors to be kept in mind when you are doing a comparability exercise. Okay, so now we come to the last part of the session, which is basically summarizing the important learnings from the BEPS action plans and the points that all the decision makers in the tax and the finance decision makers must particularly keep in mind. So in the post-BEPS world, as we just discussed, there is significantly greater amount of information available with the tax department. And based on that information now, they will also be asking different kind of questions from the taxpayer. So let's, in case of royalty, which is received by a subsidiary, in line with the DEMPE functions and the BEPS thinking, they will certainly ask questions like, where is the economic activity regarding the DEMPE functions being undertaken? What is the economic benefit that you are getting from the sale of the intangible? And where is the management undertaking the R&D activity residing? What is the qualification of the employees? So they will get into all these details pertaining to substance. Similarly, in case of loan, in case of an entity operating as distributor, they may dive deeper and they may ask questions pertaining to the core business activity of the operation. So it will not be enough just to have a contractual document spelling out all of these. You also have to do a mapping exercise of aligning your DEMPE functions with the ownership of title. So you can actually do a survey of your group's intangible ownership, and you can just figure out where am I keeping my group's intangibles. If my group's intangibles are in country A, then is the DEMPE function also being carried out in country A? If yes, then there is not much cause for worry because your title is aligned with the carrying out of DEMPE functions. But if there is a divergence between the ownership of title and the actual carrying out of DEMPE functions, then you need to rethink and you need to see whether your alignment of returns is lopsided towards title or is it towards DEMPE functions. Because once the tax administration gets the wind of DEMPE functions, or once they also endorse the BEPS thinking, then they will certainly come after you and they will try to attribute return to that country where the DEMPE functions are being carried out. So my friends, basically there is a lot of dovetailing that now needs to happen. Dovetailing between the substance and the contractual documentation. Even while preparing the master file, local file and CBCR, the tax heads need to take a holistic view. They need to take a view at a group level. They need to dovetail the way the local report is being prepared with the master file. It should not be the case where the master file describes a particular jurisdiction as a contract manufacturing jurisdiction, whereas the local file in the same jurisdiction is holding out the activity as an entrepreneurial manufacturing. So that is where the role of the tax head or the group head is important, that he has to act as the coordinating agency to ensure that there is a consistency in the filing of all the three-tier documentation by the group. So just a summary, and this is the last slide of my session, that how the excessive information, how this is going to impact the transfer pricing assessments as we see in the future. So this will certainly lead to more risk-based audit. There'll be increase in number of disputes later on as the transfer pricing authorities are able to assimilate the information that they are getting. And there's clearly a need for the tax departments of the multinational enterprise to have a coordinated approach while dealing with the BEPS compliances. So my friends, thank you so much. I am pretty much done with these slides with me, and I think now we have the floor open for questions and discussion. Manoj, how much time do we have right now?
Yeah, thank you, Ashutosh. We have enough time. So this topic is so interested. We can little prolong that also. And one good opportunity for our members that after this session, we have our learned past chairman, C. Hanmant. He will take key aspects or key points on ESR related to UAE.
Correct. That will be great.
Yeah. So before that, I will request members to raise hands and then we will unmute them for direct questioning to you.
Sure.
So you can please remove the slide share. Yeah, Akhil, you can ask your query with the speaker. I am unmuting you.
Yeah,
Akhil,
yeah. Thank you, Ashutosh. Just a big question. You talked about some threshold limits and the BEPS regulations essentially apply to the MNEs of that size. My question is whether as smaller companies or even large corporates lesser than that threshold turnover limit, are they also covered under this BEPS new regulations? Notwithstanding the fact that their headquarters or major decision making could be in the UAE. That was one. And if there are any transaction specific exceptions to this, what would they be?
Okay. Yeah, Akhil, to answer your question, like you said that, your turnover would be well below the threshold limits around 850 million USD, which we were just talking about. So in a scenario where your threshold limit is less than 850 million USD, Normally, you don't have that, CBCR or the master file requirement normally. And what you still need to do is you may still be required to have a local file or a basic transfer pricing documentation maintained. Now that would depend and vary country to country. So if your multinational enterprise has operations in different countries, you will have to check with the local transfer pricing expert in the respective countries. What are the local transfer pricing compliances, which certainly could be there over, notwithstanding the absence of the master file and the CBCR requirements.
Okay, all right, understood. Thanks.
Next question is from accounts. Account, I am unmuting you. You can please ask your query directly with the speaker. I think you have to unmute account if you are listening. Yes. We'll appreciate if you can introduce yourself first because your name is appearing as account. Okay, no issue. I'll ask the question. If the tax authority of subsidiary makes an adjustments, is it mandatory for the parent tax authority to accept the revised TP?
Okay, so well, that's an interesting question. And what you are really saying is that there is a primary transfer pricing adjustment which has taken place in one country. And now the question is that so that there is no double taxation. Obviously, if income is being enhanced in country A, country B, the income should be reduced so that the group as a whole does not suffer double taxation. Now, there are two possibilities to this. One, the transfer pricing adjustment in country A, whether that was fair or not, that is something which the country A, the country A taxpayer can go up in litigation. And if country A feels, the country A taxpayer feels that this was an unfair transfer pricing addition at the high levels, that addition could get deleted. And the matter would come to an end there. There would not be any double taxation. But let's say that the transfer pricing addition is sustained as we go to higher and higher levels. And the tax department of the multinational enterprise also takes a view that this transfer pricing addition was right. Now the transfer pricing department or the tax department of multinational enterprise may suo moto on its own, adjust the pricing for the future years and reduce the income in the other jurisdiction. That is one. Secondly, if they can also have the competent authorities of the two countries to consult each other under the tax treaty map proceedings to come to a fair pricing and agree on a fair pricing. Because many times, and it happens with many multinational enterprise, that there is a primary adjustment in one country and it is not accepted by the multinational enterprise, nor is it accepted by the government in the headquarters or in the other country. And there is double taxation and the dispute lingers on and on. In this scenario where the amounts involved are huge, sometimes the multinational enterprise opt for the MAP proceeding. MAP proceeding is a mechanism under tax treaty to resolve cases of double taxation. But mind you, it is a time-consuming mechanism and also quite expensive. So only where the amounts involved are significantly large, a multinational enterprise may invoke MAP proceedings. But it does. It has been noted that it has tended to give relief in many cases. But it's a time-consuming process. I hope that answers your question.
So account is not audible or speakable. Now Balaji sir, I am unmuting you. Please ask your question. Balaji sir.
His mic is mute.
Okay, no, sorry, it's Basant. Basant Saab is there from Singapore.
Mic.
Kumar sir. Yeah. Duggar sir, I have unmuted you. Please go ahead with your query.
Okay. My query is this: OECD guidelines are compulsory or not? If the local guidelines are more stringent, same, or more softer, any compulsion to follow exactly the OECD guidelines? This is my question.
Oh, right. So generally the rule is that if your country has your specific transfer pricing regulation, then you have to follow the specific transfer pricing regulation as has been stipulated by your country. Now, it varies from country to country. What is the significance of the OECD guidelines? So for most of the European countries, they take the OECD guidelines as the law and they follow the OECD guidelines. In other cases where you have your own domestic transfer pricing legislation, what will first prevail is the domestic transfer pricing legislation. If there are some gaps in understanding, you could refer to the OECD guidelines to plug in those gaps. Again, that depends upon what is the jurisprudence in your respective country. Giving the example of India, I can say that in India, we follow the Indian transfer pricing regulations. And now there is plenty of Indian transfer pricing case law also on that issue. However, for novel situations or cases where we feel that there is lack of guidance coming out from the transfer pricing regulations, we resort to OECD guidance. And we even quote the OECD guidance before the tax authorities and the higher levels. So long as there is no contradiction between what is written in Indian transfer pricing law and OECD guidance can be accepted. But wherever there is contradiction, Indian transfer pricing regulations will prevail over OECD guidance. So I believe that is pretty much how it will be even for other countries. That the domestic law has to be first respected, and only where domestic law is silent, you can resort to guidance from OECD.
Okay, thank you, Ashutosh. Next question is from Devashish. Devashish, I have unmuted you. Please go ahead. Devashish.
His query is resolved, maybe.
Okay, no problem. So I'll read out his query. Ashutosh, it's specifically for you. One of your slide, you have mentioned something about passive association and guarantee fee.
Right.
Now let's say due to this passive association, a subsidiary can borrow 150 instead of 100, which it would have borrowed on a standalone basis. My question is whether guarantee fee should be calculated on 100 or on 150.
So in such a situation where you are not, you're not getting any explicit guarantee from the parent, and the extra amount that you have been able to raise from the bank based on the implied support, merely because you are being member of a bigger multinational group, no guarantee fee or no charge is justified, because this is just implicit support. Only if the parent company is giving you a letter in writing, a guarantee letter in writing, and saying that, yes, in case you default on the loan, I'm going to step into your shoes, then a guarantee fee is justified.
Okay. I have two questions. One related to the poem. How important is poem the transfer pricing? Because at times it may happen, let's say Facebook, they have a point of effective management in different countries, but the trademark brands registered in the second country, and they created a surrogate holding company in the country. Now, don't you think it's a planning, even if transfer pricing and these two jurisdictions where the trademarks are registered and the surrogate holding has been created, they don't follow the transfer pricing?
Manoj, could you repeat your question, please?
Yeah.
The voice was breaking.
Okay. One country A, they have stringent transfer pricing rules where head office is situated and poem is there.
Correct.
Registered all trademarks and brands in country B, and execution of those trademarks and brand in country C, where they don't have a transfer pricing regulations in place. Now, how this country where poem is there is going to correlate the usage rights between two related parties where there is no transfer pricing? So my question is, will this poem have any impact on the transfer pricing, or these are two separate things?
Okay. So what I understand from how you are referring to poem is that you're talking about the place of effective management rules.
Yes.
So these place of effective management rules, they are there in the tax treaty. They earlier were a tiebreaker rule to determine residency in the treaty, and there are some countries who have also incorporated POEM as a express rule in their income tax code to determine residence of foreign companies. And India is one of those countries where POEM law has been introduced. Under the POEM law, you are actually going to look at the key management functions where they are being performed for a particular company, for a particular foreign company, to determine whether the foreign company is an Indian resident or not, for example. So again, the fact that you are looking at key management decision making, and the fact that in the post BEPS world, we are also in transfer pricing looking at the key management decision making. It brings a convergence between POEM and transfer pricing. So you will increasingly see that in the post BEPS world, GAR, POEM and transfer pricing, substance, all of these are actually converging at a common point, which is that the place from where critical decision making is actually taking place. So for a tax head or a CFO now, in that sense, it has become simple that once he ensures that, okay, in country A, all the decision making with respect to the intangible has been undertaken. So I am meeting the criteria in country A for transfer pricing, for POEM, for substance, for everything. Right. So if I take care of that, my other regulations also will be complied with. So country A is where the return for the intangible will be taxed, and country B and C, if they are holding only the title, legal title, in the post BEPS world, you are not giving any regard to that, and country C also is merely exploiting it. Maybe some nominal routine return will be given, but the bulk of the profits will go to country A. That is to answer your question.
Okay, thank you. Now there is a question or discussion going on the chat window from Akshay. Akshay, I have unmuted you.
Hi, Ashutosh. Thank you very much. Very informative. It was just a basic question, and I think the gentleman on the chat has answered. Probably you can also give your input. I was just saying on ESR, why is it there is no threshold like CBCR in terms of the kind of companies? Now, the relevant activity can be shipping, but there can be many, small shipping entities who will come into the ambit and have to undergo the whole process, etc., and do the filing, depending on what activity you're doing. So my question was, why do you think, what was the rationale of not having any revenue, profit, or whatever other threshold to get the companies into filing for ESR? Over.
Okay, so Akshay, I'm really not an expert on the ESR regulations, but your point on, from what I understand, ESR are economic substance regulations, and you need to approve the substance in UAE, and you need to do the necessary filing to be able to take the various tax benefits. So Manoj, would you like to add more to that question as to why?
I think our chairman
have this 10-minute session after the session.
Yeah.
Correct.
By one of our past chairmen. So in that we can discuss this at length.
So that our past chairman is going to enlighten us with the key aspects of the ESR in UAE. So I think he will cover up this point.
I would like to ask Ashutosh, can you wait for 10 minutes or should we thank you now and then take the question?
No, I'm certainly interested in, getting more nitty-gritties on ESR. So certainly.
Okay. So with that, we would like to invite our past chairman, CA Hanumanta Kumarji. Manoj, you can unmute him.
Yeah.
Hanumanta Saab, I'm sure you don't require any introduction. You are, I think, past chairman.
Yeah.
Not as young now, but at that point in time.
That's why I'm growing white hair, actually, to show some age to me.
Over to you on the practical challenges, as you mentioned, of ESR.
Thank you, Anish, Manoj, and the entire team. Ashutosh, Rastogi, it has been a wonderful session, actually. A lot of insights on the TP. It's been a great learning. My experience after spending 20 years in UAE, I see the culture and the ecosystem is quite challenging here. Okay, you come from a background where you have accounts, audit, you have taxation. Okay, here they've implemented, of course, only the minimum standards at this stage now. 5, 6, 13, 14. But whereas still in the mainland companies, accounts maintenance is not mandatory, or audit is not mandatory. So this is going to be a significant shift first in the approach itself, actually. Okay. Today, the role of chartered accountants will be a very big role as far as this area is concerned. Uh, 2 years back, in 2018, when excise and VAT, the very first taxation when it got introduced, that's the first time governance started coming in. It took a lot of time to educate business owners. It took a lot of time to educate professionals, because everything here is okay. You do a business, you make money, everything goes to you. That's an approach. So it's and again, excise and VAT, there were revenues involved to the government, whereas in ESR or CBCR or any of the BEPS action points, it's more on the governance side, and it's more on sharing the information to the other country. As one gentleman was asking, in ESR there is no threshold also. Even if you do 100,000 business into one of the relevant activity, you will be subject to notification, as well as you will be subject to report also. So these are going to be a bit of a challenge as far as the ecosystem is concerned. In fact, from the time ESR is announced, there is no movement, not much of a movement yet. And okay, even if the notification dates also say prolongs, the amount of work that is there is immense, actually. Okay. And to prove that managed and director, one of the critical thing is your documentation, in terms of documenting the minutes, in terms of in the minutes, documenting your strategic decisions, number of meetings, minimum meetings, quorum. Although here commercial laws are there, okay, and respective free zone laws are there. See, unlike in ROC in India, where you're required to file your minutes, or you're required to do some kind of a submission, that kind of an environment is still absent. So in that absence, I can say that at least 95-96% of the people, they don't maintain any minutes or anything. So I see a lot of scope or opportunity for chartered accountants to guide the business owners in terms of first keeping the minutes, actually. Minutes, record what you're doing, record what has been happening. So that is the first phase. So I mean, first thing is, my personal view is, if you don't have a taxation in any country, okay, in terms of your governance or requirements will become limited, because okay, I don't have any obligation to file somewhere, so it is my money. How I do, whether it goes to my pocket or it goes to my bank, it's okay, one and the same. That's been the approach from beginning. For this ecosystem to change, it may take a lot of time, because for example, you do a booking of profits, or you do a transaction from say China to Africa and book a huge margin here. That is legal here. Okay. Okay, whatever you call it, low tax jurisdiction or no tax jurisdiction, that has been legal all this while. Now what had happened now, from 2019 it's getting implemented. Now all of a sudden, to change the structures is not going to be easy. There are businesses who have been there for years, which they've structured the transactions, and they've structured in such a way that profits are parked, profits are structured to be kept in this jurisdiction, which was legal all the while here. Okay, so for them now, overnight to change is becoming a big challenge, actually here. In fact, I've been advising some of the clients to change structures, because now you're talking about April 2019, the regulations came. It came into light, or more details came somewhere in September or October. by then, 9 months passed, you can't do much actually. At least we are telling now we are in April 2020. At least start maintaining the minutes. See, look at the dates when the directors were there. I'm sure that they must have taken decisions. They to do business, they would have done something, but it requires to be documented. So, in fact, we have been doing the same work, doing first the secretarial work actually. Okay, first document the whole thing. What you've been doing, and some of the companies, there is a significant amount of uh, profits have been parked. Okay, they say that, okay, what is the penalty? 10,000 to 300,000. They're okay with that. Then cancellation of license is something a little bit fear. The first fear is coming is your information will be shared to the your counterpart countries, competent authority. That is where the fear is coming now. Now, 2019 for sure, many companies will not go through the test, or because adjusting in 2020, the past of 2019 is not going to be easy. So we'll have to wait and see how the assessment will happen here. And especially there are regulations here, commercial laws are there, memorandum and articles are there, then free zone regulations are there, and nobody knows how many meetings have to be held as per their regulation also. Okay, that's a kind of ecosystem where we are in. Of course, CBCR applies to bigger companies where the threshold is very, very high, and even the penalties, they kept a very significant amount. I think those multinational companies will definitely comply with those things. Even in economic substance regulation, a lot of judgmental areas are there, whether it is a relevant activity or a core income generating asset. They said that use the principle of subject, um, um, uh, substance over form. Okay, and then they're saying, okay, when it is managed and directed, they say, okay, look at what is adequate for your business. All are going to be very, very subjective. Okay, one has to analyze the business as a whole. We'll have to look into the incomes, each line by line, how the incomes are flowing. Okay, and it requires to be scrutinized, and it requires to be mapped and see how the profits are getting parked here. And before that, the biggest service that we need to do is we need to educate the business owners first. Okay, when you talk about ESR, nobody is giving that kind of an importance. I'm telling the live what is happening in the market actually. Okay, whereas in VAT or anything, without the TRN, your bank account will be closed, or the customer supplier is not accepting, or the customer is not accepting. So they tend to implement those things easily, whereas ESR or CBCR, okay, CBCR big companies, they'll implement. ESR is going to be a bigger challenge in my view. Okay, even the ecosystem in the free zones are in such that even mainland also, you don't need an office. You have flexi desk will do. Okay, no employees are required. You can have a company within 11,000 dirhams without anything. Okay, all that you can form, but how will you meet the substance then when you don't have anything? How you do the profits justify? I know many companies which are into certain commodities or certain mines and mineral this thing. They just do the billing actually, a huge billing. Okay, whereas it's either a one-man company or just a bank account, and they brought into this ESR regulations, even the offshore companies. Okay, offshore companies are very unique here. They are not like a BVI, or they're not like a Cayman over here. You cannot have an office. You cannot have an employee. Okay, you cannot do a local business. Now they are also subject to compliance. We have to really wait and see how it is going to do that actually, because here, unlike in India, here the challenge is slightly different, because every company will have some kind of a visa quota. Only then the employees can come. Okay, at least I don't know how they will meet with the employees and offices for the offshore actually. Okay,
do you have any views on what question was posed, like why it doesn't have the criteria for like revenue or profit? Why ESR
no,
doesn't?
you can have a revenue or you can have profits, to create a substance towards to establish what profits you have generated. First is okay, you have to meet that adequate employees, correct? Or okay, now again we can say that one director can do the whole thing. Okay, what is adequacy is a very subjective one. Still, if you want to do, if you are doing a bigger operations, proving substance without the people, without office is going to be slightly difficult actually. Okay.
Right. Right.
So one thing is one has to revisit the structures already, what has been done over a period of long time. Okay. We'll have to do a lot of assessments. We'll have to see the transfer pricing ones, how in the transactions, the pricing, profits, everything is booked. And we'll have to also look at adequacy of the expenses, adequacy of the asset. Most of the things are, it's all very light expense or light asset companies. And more importance is to be given on the documentation, because they said that the assessment can be finished in 6 years time. The authorities have got within 6 years you have to finish the assessments. So whatever you filed in 2020, if they come in 2023, okay, what will prove is only your documentation, correct? Your secretarial work. Okay. So MNEs, large companies will comply, but when it comes to the mid-sized companies or SME or whoever takes advantage of the taxation system here, it is going to be a little bit challenge. So a lot of education has to go on. Okay, ESR is an outcome of BEPS action points. So first, what is BEPS action points? Why this has come? What is the role of OECD? Why G20 is pushed? That has to go into the first the business owners. Okay, then only when the business owner takes a decision, only finance guys can implement. And after being here for many years, if we get any big regulations or complex cases, the mindset are not very interesting mindset here to go through the regulations. Honestly, that's because the mindset of the chartered accountants are so tuned in adding value in the business rather than looking at the compliances. Because for our own survival, we changed like that in the past. Okay, unlike in India where you have returns, where you have this thing, here this is the environment. So this I look at as a very practical challenge. Even minimum standard, they said, okay, that is a minimum standard, 5, 6, 13, 14. Then what next is going to be the question. Then they also said that you will have a peer review to see how you are implementing in your country. Okay, so probably another country will come and see whether the implementation is at par. Year one, definitely the implementation is going to be very difficult. But in G20, Saudi Arabia is also one of the member country, and they are hosting in Riyadh in November this year. I'm sure that Saudi drives this region. So Saudi wants the region to be compliant with this. Whatever extension comes, the governments are very firm to implement. Okay, it is going to be a challenging environment for existing structures to change overnight. Even if the notification, as Manoj said, it may get extended, but still for such a large amount of companies, okay, there is no threshold. So everybody, most of the things other than your manufacturing, locally consumed anywhere, because this being an international hub, so it is an attractive destination for foreigners to come and do the business. So 80-85% is a foreign business here. Okay, obviously, even if they extend for up to September also, to prepare to get ready is going to be a very challenge. And first is the resistance, resistance from the business owners. Nobody wants to listen to it also. I think we as a chapter, we have to do a lot of events, even for members to go and do a deep dive into this subject actually. Like in VAT time, I think there was a cyclone of thunder of events were there. I think we need to do more and more events to educate our own members first. Okay, then only they can go and talk to their owners and explain this thing. The only thing is we'll have to tell all these foreign companies your information will be shared with your country revenue system. That's the only thing. Then they will they will take it seriously.
Hanuman Saab, based on your discussion, there are some comments going on. So it says, well summarized, Hanumanji. Challenges in UAE are multiple. This is by Ashital Soni, executive member. I would like to add that tax authorities and tax judiciary systems are also very new and relatively immature here, which will be additional challenge for companies. And on that, there is a comment from Balaji that challenges are more opportunities for us. So
absolutely.
With that, I would like to thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank Ashutosh.
There is a question. There is a question from Neerab Bhai.
No, oh my God. So we are already at 10:50, 8:50.
No. It's not.
Go ahead.
Guys, it's not a question really. Hanumanji, your observations are absolutely well placed. But look, these were the same kind of observation we heard when VAT was getting implemented. People are not ready. People don't want to comply. When it comes as a law, and let's understand and appreciate that the government has much larger things at stake to introduce these laws. So it's not something that they are doing out of their willing choices, So let's see how best we help them comply with this. That is number one. Number two, if members need education, yes, we all are there very much where we all can chip in, participate. A lot of our tax focus group meetings have happened on the subject. We can take a lead. ICAI chapter is very, very active. And please appreciate that today ESR is very, very simple compliance.
Yeah,
it's
like
nowhere compared to any other complication which is there in other countries. So let's not even try and, yes, there are issues, but let's try and fix those issues rather than kind of complain with it. Yeah.
No, it's not a complaint. What I'm saying is, I'm saying the challenges here. Okay. Obviously, we'll have to overcome this. Second thing, it's a great opportunity for finance professionals. Okay. Obviously, this has to be implemented. That's why, see, one has to respect the law of the country. We have to implement. What I'm trying to say is the challenges in the ecosystem.
For me, I feel there are a lot of opportunities for the seasoned professionals.
Absolutely.
VAT.
VAT has given a lot of professionals to come from India here again, like in VAT.
This will be a little challenging. I am not commenting on anyone, but yes, this is not going to be so easier like VAT.
Yeah. Do we have Sundar Saab or Hari Saab to propose?
No, I can't see them. So I think I will. You can do, sir.
No, you carry on, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ashutosh, and thank you very much, Hanuman sir. And both the sessions were quite. I can feel that if it would be on the stage, then it would have taken more than 4 or 5 hours. And we look forward for more sessions from Ashutosh. Once the things will resume, then we will definitely plan. As you can see on the chat window also, that members are requesting for such knowledgeable session. And we are really grateful for you and your team who has spent, I know you, whole team has spent a lot of time. Mehtaji, whole team has spent day and night to create this.
Lawyer charges by the hour, so.
Yeah. And the whole team was working because we finalized on Monday about the session. So it was very less time for them, and they are all locked in the home. So they all are working from different locations. Really appreciate Ashutosh for you and team. And now,
my side also, thank you, Ashutosh. Very well presented. Thanks a lot. And Hanuman Saab, you initiated the discussion.
Yeah.
I'm sure now a lot of accountants will deep dive into it. And like we had 2 years back a VAT year, we will definitely have an ESR year.
Yes. So like
Thank you very much all the participants also to join. Basant Kumar.
Mehtaji, last of the sweets are there.
Oh, sweets are there?
Yeah.
Okay. What are these?
This is so Ashutosh is starting one course on basics of transfer pricing, and I request requested him that if he can, because it will be online, so if he can take a few of our members at honorary basis and they can share his on those transfer pricing basic studies course. And
Okay.
he agreed to that he will take 20-25 members who are really interested and having currently working on transfer pricings, because
Okay.
it will be more easy for them to understand.
It is like you give job only to the person who have experience. Then what's the use?
I'll unmute Ashutosh. You can explain more on that.
So
Yeah.
rightly said, Anish ji. So we are planning courses of different kinds. So one is the basic course, which will be for the uninitiated. So those who have not had experience, for them also, we will come up with a module. And then there'll be an intermediate level and an advanced level much later on. So right now, like Manoj said, we are thinking of doing the basic and the intermediate course. So provided we have, interested candidates who are really eager to learn all that, in this environment.
No,
So
I'm sure we have a lot of professionals who practices on ESR, CVCR, transfer pricing. So they
Okay.
would love to attend it. So it's a very nice gift from your side. Thank you very much.